Hey guys, I'm in my backyard right now, and I'm about a week late. Actually, I'm exactly a week late, but today we're going to be remembering the 1-year anniversary of the July 13th, 2017 Supercell Thunderstorm that struck Terre, Haute and did some damage to my property. I'll put a link in the description of my video from that day. When I was driving through it, I was coming home and didn't think the storm was going to hit. I was tracking it on my radar. Didn't think it was going to hit. It looked like it was going to go north and miss Terre Haute. I was wrong. It took a giant turn south. And as some of you may know, whenever a storm takes a turn like that, it gets really strong. That's exactly what happened here. And I'm going to be telling the story. I'll put, once again, the link is in the description for the video from that day. And I'm going to be telling the story of what I saw. So basically, I was rail fanning that day, and I looked north, and man, were those clouds dark. Like, really dark. Almost darker than I've ever seen. I looked west, and there was a green sky, although that's not where the storm, well, the storm was coming from the west, but it was just straight west, not like northwest, where this was coming from. But, anyways, so I was driving back home, and it started to rain, and, I was like, oh, well, part of the rain bands must be hitting us. So I keep going. I get to halfway to my house, pretty much, and it starts to just downpour. It's just insane. Visibility is probably less than a quarter mile. Lightning, thunder. One time there was just a clap that was insanely loud. You just couldn't see anything. It was so windy. Started to flood the streets, like instantly flash floods, and I'm pretty sure they actually captured small rotation on the storm. I'm not exactly sure, but I feel like I remember something about that. Anyways, I found myself on 25th Street, and I watched a tree come down on the freaking road in front of me, and that's when I decided time to pull over. So I pulled over in a parking lot, and it was insane. It was really windy, trees blowing. It looked like it was gonna fall over. There was a pole, an electrical pole with a street light on it. You can hear some EMT in the background. There was a electrical pole with a street lamp on it that I didn't even know how it was still on. It must have had like an extra power supply, because the power was actually out on the traffic lights nearby. And it looked like it was about to fall on us, and that would be pretty bad because it had a wire going to it. But basically, after a while, it started to let down just a wee bit, so we followed a car into the storm and started just driving, and I got to an intersection with traffic lights, and they were freaking destroyed. Like, one of the poles was turned like 45 degrees. I showed this part in the video. And then and on another pole, one of the traffic lights was like, let's say it goes like this. This is what it looked like, literally. I think the wind caught the background and pushed it back. But anyways, I kept driving on 25th Street. I just passed so many down trees in the road. I was surprised there wasn't any down power lines in the road. I was afraid my house was going to get destroyed at first because, well, actually at second, because I kept driving. There started to be a point where there's like not many trees, so there wasn't as much damage. And then I crossed the CSX Dwayne Yard, and I just, right as I said that, I mentioned Well, at least I'm not seeing any destroyed houses. Right as I mentioned that, there's an ambulance and a fire truck parked on the side of the road by a house that a tree had fell on the front of it and literally destroyed it. I showed it in the video. They actually, now it's already completely rebuilt it completely. Now it's already finished. But they literally, I thought they were just gonna fix the front, but they rebuilt the entire house. But that was just sad to see. Anyways, I continued my way across to the Dewey Diamond tracks, and I looked at the signals, and they were just off, so the power was out. Traffic lights were off there too. Kept going. I turned off the camera because it was starting to get bad again, and we were heading up to check on family. And 25th, I turned onto Lafayette Street. It was just, the power was off. I got to Hawthorne, and those traffic lights are still on, surprisingly. But then I kept going, and those were off, and the rest of them were off. And then I got around, I saw backyards just flooded. I mean, like, turned into swamps. Literally, they were flooding up feet. It was really crazy to look at. So then, after a while, the storm kind of let up. It was still raining. It was still really dark, but no, not much lightning and thunder. And it wasn't, like, downpour. So I went home, and I was afraid the house was destroyed, or at least part of it was. Well, I was lucky, and it wasn't. So I was really relieved after that. But my power was out, so I was really sad that the power was out, and more on about that power outage later. But when I got here, there was significant damage to part of my property. So this is the back of my house. These trees freaking, like, destroyed. Okay, so I'm gonna show you. This used to be as tall as that, but now, as you can see, it's like a midget tree. So this fell onto this and that fence. Surprisingly, no damage to it. Either of those. I was really lucky of us too. None of our, like, buildings were, like, or actual, like, builds were damaged, but this was also, part of it fell off onto here. Also, none of this was damaged. And I don't use that, no. That's just there. But, I had to cut up all of the trees. They were, like, from here all the way back to that fence. There was just limbs and leaves, and oh my gosh, it was annoying to clean up. That night, still no power. They said 11:45 p.m., the energy company I have, they said 11:45 p.m. you'd get your power back. Well, they pushed that back to 12:15. Well, they pushed that back to the next day. And so I had to sleep with no power. And I always like having my fan on whenever I go to sleep. And I couldn't do that, so it was extremely hard to fall asleep. And I had no air conditioning, so it was burning. Next morning, I decided to go outside into the world and see what else happened. So I went rail fanning, and I made a video of the very sick GS Type 1 E-Bell at Fort Harrison Road crossing. You can look that up if you want. It's just called Very Sick GS Type 1 E-Bell. It was seriously messed up. I guarantee it was caused by the storm, probably water damage. The crossings all had generators. CSX put generators on them, so they were working. But the actual signals themselves, yeah, they were having some problems. I went down to Haley, and the eastbound signal kept going from the top being red and the bottom being off to both of them being off at the same time, constantly. It wouldn't stop. I stayed there for about 5 minutes. Nothing came. So, oh yeah, the Fort Harrison, I caught a train there. But then I went over to Preston. Fort Harrison Road goes over that, doesn't cross it. And I caught a Sperry truck passing there. I assume they were inspecting for fallen trees. on the line. Gave me a nice horn show. You can look that up too. Sperry Truck gives good horn show or something like that. I don't know. If you go on my channel, you might be able to find it. But anyways, and after that, nothing really came. I looked around. There was just damage, and it was just bad. It really sucked to look at. And sorry if I'm like really slow at talking, by the way, but so then I just went home. Well, first I had to get food from I think I just had Wendy's or something because no microwave power, so I couldn't make home food, like a bowl of soup or anything. So I had to go to a restaurant and get food. Actually, a couple restaurants still didn't have power by the next morning, but a few did, so went to one of those. Then I just kind of stayed home, I opened the windows, got some pretty nice breeze at least. And the funny thing was the next morning it was just blue sky, no cloud in sight, like nothing had ever happened the day before. That's what's always funny about these really big like storms and all that. The next morning it's just peaceful and calm, like nothing happened. But so I went to I don't know. I think I played on my Switch because it had some battery. Same with my DS consoles. I decided to just kind of go rail fanning again. I don't think I saw much, but because there was nothing to do. And then I think I had grabbed a friend and went to the park because they didn't have power either, and it was really boring. So we just went to the park, and that night, guess what? Still no power. And they said it was going to be fixed. The first time they said it was going to be fixed that last night. So, unreliable, I should say. But, so I just slept on the floor in my living room and had the windows open. I actually slept pretty well with the windows open and sleeping on the floor with one blanket and one pillow. That was actually pretty nice. But next morning, still no power. So I was just sitting on the couch doing nothing. Well, I was playing on my phone because I could still use a car charger for my cars to charge it whenever I went out. So I was just playing on my phone, and I thought I was going to do something that day. This is July 15th we're on now. So anyways, I was just sitting there on my phone, playing on it. I think I was playing Bit City, whenever I still had that. And finally, at 10:25 a.m., I remember the exact time, 10:25 a.m., it came back on. The power came back on. It was all over. Finally! We were literally the last ones to ever get power back, which is really stupid, but I remember, like, whenever I heard the microwave turn back on, because it would always make a beep sound whenever it got power. Like, if you unplugged it and plugged that back in, or if it just got power, it would make a beep. But I remember I kept the fans on in my house, so whenever it would come on, we'd get air, and we just know when it came on. So I knew that, and then I kept the living room light on that morning, so if it came back on, I'd know. All that came back on. I was like, I literally just ran out of the house screaming, like, yay! It was great to have air conditioning again and all that. But this is what's left of these trees after that storm. Yeah, they got destroyed. So yeah. But thanks for watching my little story time-ish video of that really horrible day. I mean, it wasn't as bad as it could have got. Could have been a bad tornado, but either way, it was really bad. And if you've listened to this the whole way, you are awesome, because I am really slow and kind of boring whenever I talk. So, yeah, thanks for listening, and goodbye.